Hello students, I am Prakashi Gangwani from Regional Institute of Education, Bhopal. I am a student of BA Language and Social Sciences. So today we will discuss the second part of the last chapter of your second book, that is An Alien Hat. In the last part, we read that Tillu tried to go inside that secret path where his father goes daily in hope to see the suns and the stars, but he could not reach the surface and gets caught in between. Then his father explained him everything in detail about his job and the conditions in which he works. I'm sure you remember all of that. So today we will continue with the second part. But before we read, we must know that the big TV screen in the control room shows an alien spacecraft. The question whether there is life on other planets exercises everybody's mind. The president of the Central Committee is about to make an important statement. So confused? Let's see what actually happens. Next day, when Tillu's father went to work, he found the control room full of excitement. People were crowded round a very big TV screen. It showed Dot in an otherwise clear background. It isn't a star, for it's changing its position. A computer has given a trajectory for the thing. The difficult word in the above text is trajectory. That means a path followed. So students, the next day, when Tillu's father went to work, he saw a lot of excitement in the people of the control room. Means a room from which all the machines were controlled. That was the control room. So there was a huge TV screen and all of them were looking at that. What was in that screen? There was a clear background and a very small dot in between. People thought it was a star. But no, it wasn't, because it was changing its position and stars don't. Their computers have given a trajectory, that means a path that dot is following, a kind of a round path that dot was following. It's heading towards us, the supervisor of the last shift explained. A spacecraft? Tillu's father asked. By now, he was joined by his teammates on the new shift. So we think, but it needs watching. A spacecraft? Where from? The solar system wasn't known to have any life anywhere else except on their planet. So the supervisor told that whatever that thing is, it is coming towards us. Then Tillu's father asked, "Oh, is it a spacecraft?" All the members of his team had joined him, so they all told that we need to keep a watch over it. We cannot do anything right now. Then they continued that how can a spacecraft come here? Because there is no life in any other planet other than theirs. Tillu's father recalled the ancient days, recorded in the archives at the Central Bureau, when their ancestors had a well-developed space program and had searched the solar system with manned and unmanned spacecraft and found that they were indeed alone. The difficult words in the above text are manned. That means having a human crew. The second one is unmanned. That means not having or needing a crew that runs automatically. So Tillu's father began to recall the old days of his great-grandfathers, where they had developed a good space program. They used this spacecraft to find out that whether is there any life in any other planet. But they found that no, there is no life in any planet other than theirs. Now, in the days of energy shortage and underground life, they had no space program. They could not watch impotently from their vantage point. Who were these strangers? The conference room in the Central Bureau was so quiet that an outsider would have thought it was empty. The difficult words in the above text are impotently. That means lacking in power. Second word is vantage. That means a place or position affording a good view of something. So, Tillu's father continued that now they do not have enough electricity to run a space program. Therefore, they did not have any space program. as the limited electricity they have is used to give them a comfortable life underground. So they had no option left other than just watching that stranger. They were very helpless. So everybody in the control room was quiet and lost in their thoughts about what is that thing which is coming. The room became so quiet that anyone would think there is no one inside the room. Far from it, it was full to capacity, but the members of the Central Committee were unusually quiet. They knew that the president was going to make a momentous announcement. Colleagues, I will give you the report as I have it. While I speak, there may be change in the situation. The difficult words in the above text is momentous. That means something of great significance or importance. So, all the members in the control room were present, but they were unusually quiet. That means a silence that does not happen usually. So, the president was going to make a very important and significant announcement about that spacecraft. He said he will be giving the report and there could be more changes in that meanwhile he gives the report. The president paused to get his papers in order and then continued. Two spacecrafts are approaching us. One is in fact orbiting our planet, while the other is still far away. We guess that they are coming from our neighboring planet. How should we react? Number one, your views please. So, the president said that there are two spacecraft coming near our planet. He was arranging his papers while saying it. One of them is orbiting the planet. That means he is moving around. And the other one is far away. They guessed that it is coming from their neighboring planet. So their top officials were named as number 1 and number 2. So he asked number 1 to tell his views that what do you think what that thing is. Number 1 was in charge of defense. He was known for his courage and wisdom. Sir, if we wish we can totally destroy these spacecraft with our missiles, but that won't make us any wiser. We do not have the capacity to render these craft unoperational in space, but should they land, we can render them ineffective anytime we choose. The difficult words in the above text are render, that means to inspect. And the next word is unoperational, that means something which is not working, which is not operational. So here, the president had asked number 1 regarding his views. So he was army head and he was very strong and very courageous. He said that, sir, we can completely destroy the spacecraft with our missile. But I think that is not a wise move. He said, we do not have enough capacity to understand them and inspect them, that what they actually are. But we have the technology to make them ineffective once they land into our surface. Our reports say that they do not contain living beings. They only have instruments. Number 2, your opinion please. The president asked the scientist on the committee. I recommend non-interference and passive observation. Since we do not know the power of the senders of these spacecraft and we are still in dark about their intentions, it is wise not to reveal our existence. The difficult words in the above text is passive observation. That means observing the simplicity of things without getting involved actively. So now, according to the reports the president has, there are no human beings inside and the spacecraft. They are just some instruments, some scientific instruments. Then the president asked number 2 for his opinion and number 2 was a scientist. So the scientist said that we should not do anything and just simply observe whatever is going on, a passive observer. Because we do not know the power of the sender and what are their actual intentions. Do they want to hurt us? So it is smart to not tell them about our existence and just sit and see. If we destroy these spaceships or render them ineffective, we might reveal our existence. The president looked at number 3, a social scientist. He rarely agreed with number 2, but this was one of those rare occasions when he did. So, he said that if we destroy them or make them ineffective, they will come to know that there is life here. Someone is destroying us. So now there was a turn of number 3. He was a social scientist and he never agreed with number 2 on anything. But this time, unusually, rarely, exceptionally, he agreed with the scientist. I agree with number 2, sir. In fact, I will go so far as to say that we should keep our surface activities to the minimum, thus creating the impression that there is no life on this planet. Fortunately, our surface conditions do give that impression. So number 3 supported the views of number 2 and said that, sir, we should be very inactive here. That means on the surface, so that the senders do not come to know anything about us. We should hide. And the surface's conditions itself reveal that there is no life possible here. Before the president could speak, his personal telephone rang. He lifted the receiver and listened quietly for a minute. Colleagues, he announced, the first spacecraft has landed. Now it's the excitement part. The president's phone rang and the announcement came that, sir, the first spacecraft has been successfully landed. Now let us see some questions of this part. The first question is, why was everyone in the control room greatly excited? Answer in the context of an alien hand. So everyone in the control room was greatly excited because a big TV screen showed a dot in the clear background which was heading towards their planet. The second question is, was the spacecraft manned or unmanned? How do you know it? The spacecraft was unmanned because number 1 reported to the president that they do not contain any living beings. They were only instruments, the scientific instruments. The third question says, what did number 1 and number 2 suggest should be done about the alien spacecraft? So number 1 suggested that they should wait for the spacecraft to land and then render it ineffective anytime it is required. But number 2 suggested that we should not interfere and observe passively and not to reveal their existence by rendering the spacecraft ineffective. So students, now let's get to the most exciting part of the story where all the suspense which I have created is revealed. So it was a red letter day in Tillu's life, the day he was waiting for his father had last taken him to the control room. From here, he could see the alien spacecraft on his TV screen. What a funny looking thing, Daddy. What does it contain? Tillu asked. His father shook his head and can't say for sure. So the difficult words in the above text are red letter day, a day that is pleasantly noteworthy or memorable. The second word is alien, that is belonging to a foreign country. So Tillu had the most important day for which he was waiting since so long. For example, you wait for your birthday. What was that day? So on that day, his father took him to the control room. He could see that alien spacecraft in the TV screen. He saw that and said, "Oh, what a funny thing it is." He asked his father and the father replied with a nodded head like, "Can't say what it is, even we are thinking so. We are only allowed to observe it from far. But we control all its parts and can exercise our part if it is up to any mischief." He pointed to an impressive panel with several colored buttons on it. Tillu looked at them wistfully. "Look, it's up to something, Daddy." Tillu suddenly noted some movement in the spacecraft. Others in the control room saw it too. All eyes were now glued to the screen. The difficult words in the above text are panel. That means a flat board on which instruments or controls are fixed. The second word is wistfully. That means a feeling of regretful longing. The father told Tillu that We are only supposed to observe this, and we can also control it and make it ineffective if it harms our planet in any way. Now, there was a panel with a lot of colorful buttons on it. And Tillu wants to press all of them. He was so curious. Let's go and press and play with them. Suddenly, while he was doing this, there was a movement in a spacecraft in the TV, and all of them started to stare at the screen. A mechanical hand was emerging from the spacecraft. It was approaching the surface of the planet. It bent and touched the soil. What was it up to? People crowded towards the screen for a closer look. The telescopic lens of the TV camera zoomed in to the tip of the mechanical hand. Now the mechanical hand came out from the spacecraft, that was the lander, and the hand touched the soil. People went near the screen and they saw what is going on. So the cameras through which they could see all this was zoomed to the tip of the mechanical hand to see what it was doing. So cameras were over the tip of the lander. Tillu was staring at the control panel and its attractive buttons. An irresistible desire got hold of him to press the most prominent of all the buttons, the red button. He moved and pressed it. There was a shrill whistle and Tillu found himself the center of attention. His father pulled him away roughly and restored the red button to the neutral position. But the damage was done. The mechanical hand from the spacecraft ceased to work. The difficult word in the above text is shrill. That means a high-pitched and piercing. So as the movement was going on in the spacecraft, Tillu continued to see that panel, remember, with colorful buttons. And he wanted to play with them and press them. So finally he went and pressed the most important button, the red button, out of severe curiosity. Suddenly when he pressed it, there was a loud sound of whistle like an alarm, and all of them were looking at Tillu. His father pulled him very fastly and brought that button to the neutral position which Tillu had pressed. But the damage was already done. Due to that button, the mechanical hand of the spacecraft stopped to work. At a press conference held by NASA, a scientist was briefing the world press. Everything has been going on smoothly with the Viking mission. There is a small hitch. The mechanical hand, which was to dig out the Martian soil for examination, has developed a malfunction. We don't know the cause, but our technicians are confident that they will sort it out. So now in NASA, there was a press conference where the scientists told everyone that the mission was going smoothly, but there was a small hitch. The mechanical hand that dig out to take the soil of the Martian surface stopped working. It had some problem, but he was confident that their technician team will solve that. Don't worry. And shortly afterwards, there was another press release from NASA. The mechanical hand is working again, thanks to the efforts of our technicians. Soil samples are being collected and examined. Soon we will know the answer to the question whether there is life on Mars or not. So after some time, the new press release had come, and now they told that the mechanical hand is working, thanks to our efficient technical team. Soil samples have been collected and they will be examined. Soon we will come to know that whether there is life on Mars or not. Life on Mars? Of all the planets in our solar system, Mars is the nearest in location and physical conditions to our Earth. So the scientists behind the Viking mission were hopeful of finding life on Mars, but they were in for a disappointment. The Viking mission found no signs of life on Mars. So the NASA scientists were expecting that there would be life on Mars because of its similar physical conditions as Earth. But they all were disappointed to know that there is no life possible on Mars. So students, If you have understood and analyzed the chapter properly, you would now know that these characters of Tillu, his mother, his father, that president, the top officials, all the members were not on Earth. They were all living on Mars. And that too not on the surface, but underground. But before their ancestors, as Tillu's father told, their ancestors were living naturally, but due to some changes in sun, they had to live underground in artificial conditions. And that mechanical hand that stopped working in between, the NASA press release told why that was stopped working, because Tillu pressed the button, hence the lander which was collecting the soil samples stopped working on the Martian surface. Now let's quickly see the comprehension check of this part. The first question says, what do you think the mechanical hand was trying to do? So the mechanical hand was trying to collect the sample of the soil from the planet for examination. The second question says, Tillu pressed the red button and the damage was done. What was the damage? So the damage was that the mechanical hand from the spacecraft ceased to work. That means it stopped working because of that red button. The third question says, where had the spacecraft come from? So the spacecraft had come from NASA, that is National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and it is situated in America. You must remember the full form of NASA. The fourth question says, on which planet did Tillu and his parents live? So Tillu and his parents lived on the planet underground the surface of Mars, which had artificial conditions to survive. Let's see the textbook exercise of this chapter. The question says, if you had to live in a home like Tillu's, what parts of life would you find most difficult? What compensations might there be? I found the most difficult is freedom and open space. It will be like living in a cell far away from an open space. There was no sightseeing, no social life, no interaction with nature. I would want peace, safety, freedom, and a fearless place as compensations to living it. And if all of us would be living in such underground buildings, people must collaborate with each other nicely and they must love each other. The second question says, what, if anything, might drive mankind to make their homes underground? Answer in the context of an alien hand. So students, why we have to go to underground? What could be the reasons? The reasons could be global warming, depletion of air and water, climatic changes, lack of natural resources to fulfill man's basic needs may destroy the life on the surface of the earth and drive mankind to make their homes underground. Imagine you are living underground with all these artificial conditions as Tillu. And the last question, which you have to do as homework and discuss with your parents, teachers, and friends. The question says, do you think there is life on other planets? Can you guess what kind of people there may be? In what ways are they likely to be different from us? Answer this question in context of an alien hand. So students, this was a very beautiful and creative fiction with all the suspense and interest, which was beautifully written by Jayant Narlikar. I hope you enjoyed it as I did.